Namaste. Verse 15 of chapter 5. In those, however, who have banished ignorance by wisdom, the true self shines forth with effulgence like the sun. This is a very interesting point to keep in mind, that, take a stained glass window in a church or wherever you might find it, but it's common in churches. Before the dawn, there's no light coming through it, and gray and blue and green and all of these things look gray. All colors, they don't have any color really, because when there's no light behind it, there's no power. And so it is that people who are tamasic, people who are dark consciousness, there's no life there. And the more life there is, the more they manifest their own nature. The quality of Shuddha is that of an animal that has just come up to the human level. And it's only in time that the Shuddha begins to understand that it does have an intelligence, and it can win more by its intelligence by just having a material labor job. And so gradually it becomes a Vaishya, who wants to get things for itself by using its brains. And so the first is symbolized by a worker on the soil. The second is symbolized by a merchant. But of course, there are many saints who have been farmers. There have been many saints who have been merchants. It's nor the symbol, the outward, just that which represents Shuddha consciousness, they say. The farmer doesn't have to be that job at all. Somebody who is sly and thinks of himself as symbolized as a merchant, but he may be anybody. I've seen plenty of sadhus who are that way too. It doesn't matter what you do outwardly. Why then a kshatriya? A kshatriya is one who offers his life for the good of his country, one who risks his life for the welfare of others. But he doesn't have to be a soldier. Many soldiers are full of bloodlust. That's not what they mean. The tradition of the caste system was that it's those levels of refinement of consciousness in human beings who think in terms of helping other people and not of being helped. I have met many swamis in India who are more interested in being served than in serving. They are Vaishyas. They're not Brahmins or anything else. They're Vaishyas. A true Kshatriya is one who gives. But then you reach the point of refinement in your spiritual development, where you understand that giving people things isn't going to do much for them. You have to give them bliss. And the more you can share your bliss with people, the more you become a true Brahmin. A true Brahmin is one who gives God. But you go beyond these, beyond all the qualities, triguna rahitam, beyond all the castes, when you can understand that everything is God, and you don't really have to do anything except shine that consciousness. Now that shining always comes from the intensity of the light, the intensity of the energy behind a person. The difference between a genius and a stupid person is the amount of energy flowing through his brain. The difference between Kali Yuga and Satya Yuga and the other two yugas, Dwapara and Treta, is simply the amount of energy it's pouring into this planet. And this is the explanation for how these yugas actually can take place. That our planet, we're living in a cosmic environment. We're not a little island on an empty sea. Space is full of life. And as you move into areas where there is more energy, you come up and up and up. And so the higher ages, people become more and more intelligent. And you can see even now that people know and understand things much more than they did 500 years ago, let us say. So the amount of energy is also represented by the amount of light. So coming back to that stained glass window, the amount of light that comes in that window will make each window shine. And you look at the window and say, oh, what a nice light, what nice color. But in fact, it doesn't come from the window, it comes from the sun. And so any quality that you have that is shining, and any virtue that you have that is outstanding, everything comes from God. God is the real power behind all that you can do. You cannot, any more than a corpse can, think these things through for yourself. It's His power in you doing it. There's another interesting thing about this comparison of consciousness with stained glass window. Not only is the color of every pane different, but also the stronger the light, you begin to see the imperfections in those panes. You couldn't even see the light before. And when that light is coming strongly, then you can see, oh, this pane's dirty, or this pane has a bug splashed on it, or all sorts of things. You can only see it when the light is very strong. And so this is something that I have observed on the spiritual path. And it's quite interesting that the more you develop spiritually, actually you begin to show your faults. I have seen people who were well on the spiritual path, but they were almost grossly opinionated, selfish, not compassionate, many, many faults, all the faults that a man can have. You can also put it this way, that as you advance spiritually into the enemy territory of Maya, let's say, one part of your army may go forward, but another part of your army may be thrown back. And it isn't until your whole front advances that you can really say you have claimed that territory. And so many people have advanced on some lines of their personality, but have allowed other aspects to degenerate. This is why I say don't judge anybody. People can have outstanding faults and yet be very saintly. And people can have many wonderful virtues and still be held back by countless little tiny faults. To become perfect, you have to completely take over that enemy territory of ego, become completely clean. I remember one time I was living in a house with a garden in front of my window. It was a big picture window. And every now and then I would look up from my desk and enjoy the beautiful flowers and plants and so on. One day there was a heavy rainfall and it splattered mud all over the window, and I wasn't able to enjoy the garden anymore because I was constantly being disturbed by these little splots of mud all over. Well, being a man, I'm sure a woman would have gotten out there right away and cleaned it, but being a man, I was too busy doing things. It took me 2 weeks before I got out there, finally, to clean off that window. Well, after I'd cleaned it, I stepped back inside the room, and I said, oh, what a beautiful window. Then I smiled. I said, well, the only reason I think it's beautiful is because I can't see it at all. And the reason that we love truly spiritual people, masters, saintly people, is because you don't see them anymore. You see God through them. I remember one time my guru was working on the Bhagavad Gita, editing it, and I was sitting at his feet. And I was thinking what a wonderful thing it is to be his disciple. And I was feeling great love for him. Well, he finished that. I was editing with him before that. I was during that period of my life. But he asked me to help him get to his feet. And as he did so, he just looked at me with his radiant smile. And he said, just a bulge of the ocean. In other words, don't look at me. Your love for what you see in me is your love for God. I'm just a little wave on the ocean of his consciousness. This is what all of us are. We all seem so different, just as the panes of glass can be red, blue, green, orange, whatever it might be. But we really we're only able to be beautiful, we're only able to transmit light and wisdom and so on, to the extent that we have cleaned that window and allowed God to flow through us to the infinite. So make this constant effort in your life to see him as the real doer. When people say, oh, you did a great job on that, understand that he did it through you. You can say it to them too. God is the doer. But don't insult their taste. Don't say, oh, that silly thing. No. Be respectful of other people, but realize that he is the real doer. And so that when people insult you also, you can say, well, I thank you very much. Don't identify yourself with his ego. If you want to feel that you are a part of God, then there are two ways of finding that truth. One is by meditation, going within, silencing the mind, allowing his bliss to come into it. But there's another and a social way, and it's very important to do both. Try to think that other people are your own self. What you can do is calm the feelings in your heart, and then feel other people's hearts. Feel their feelings. The more you practice this, the more you will find that it does work. That you will feel their suffering, you will feel their happiness. And the more you can expand yourself to include them, you will learn to think of giving to them and not of taking from them. You will share your bliss with them, and that will deepen your own bliss. So to be moral, to be spiritual, to be truly a child of God, you must understand that he is your own self. You are living in this universe just like one little ripple on the vast ocean of spirit. And we must calm those ripples. Like God, to use another illustration of God, I've used the one of the flames of jet on a little gas stove. Think of pots of moon. Each little moon pot will have a reflection of the same moon. But it's really the moon that's giving that reflection. It's not the pot that's producing it. And if you have one pot in which the wind is blowing, or you stir it up and the water is agitated, the moon will be distorted. And so people who think me, mine all the time, they keep stirring that pot, and you don't see reflected there the image of the moon. It'll all be distorted. We have to calm that image. And the ways to do so are yoga, citta vritti nirodha. Calm the feelings in your heart. Calm your mind. Calm your sense of ego and the ego identity, the thought that I want this and I want that. But it all comes down finally to your own feelings, your own citta. When those reactive processes are calmed, then you attain that state. Now, what do I mean when I talk about that reactive process? Simply this, that whenever you see something that you like, you yourself decide that you like it, don't you? And if you see something that you don't like, it's the thing in you that makes you not like it. It's not the thing in itself. The conditions are neutral. It's you that determine whether you like it or not. Now, there's another interesting aspect to that. That is that when you react in a positive way, there's a spurt of energy up in the spine. This is why vertebrates are necessary. To have a vertebra or a vertebral column is essential for attaining enlightenment, because in the vertebra there is that power to rise. In the amoeba there is no such power. In the worm there's really hardly such power. In man above all, there is that power. You are not better than a worm, except that you are God more clearly manifested. And sooner or later you will get off this ladder and other people will come up it, and it goes on and on and on. But we have to get rid of that thought that I am just me. And the more energy you put into it, the more you realize, first of all, that in the spine there is this reactive process. When you like something, what do? Isn't it so? You sit upright, you look up, you inhale. When you don't like something, you exhale, you sigh. You look down, your spine slumps. Your reaction begins really in the mind, yes, but the reaction of the heart to the world creates this energy in the spine, causing it to rise from the heart or to lower from the heart. The heart is the pivotal point. And when there is a raising energy, you become more appreciative of things. So I know that one sadhu told me that you shouldn't like anything. I said, not even a beautiful sunset? No, nothing. Well, to me, that's a very dry way of approaching it. It's not invalid, but to me it's very insufficient. Because what you need to do is enjoy everything with the joy of God. So when you see a beautiful sunset, feel that it's His beauty there, and it's with His joy that you're responding to that beauty, but then trace it always back to your own self. Conditions are always neutral. They seem positive or negative according to your own reaction. Now, the practice of yoga helps to emphasize this reactive power in the spine. The rising energy in Ida and descending energy in Pingala. And this is associated with the breath. So that it's actually the astral breath, the breathing process in the astral body takes place in the Ida and the Pingala. And if you can get rid of that breath inwardly, if you can calm your reactive process, Krishna earlier says, pouring the pran into the apan into the pran, equalizing the upward and downward movement of energy in the Ida and the Pingala. When you can neutralize these two, and yoga helps you with that, then you go into the deep spine, the Sushumna, and then spiritual awakening really happens. So there are physical things. We mustn't think of the path as only mental or only spiritual. We are in this body a physical, mental, and spiritual being. And this is where yoga helps to bring all of these together to take you where you are, and from here lead you step by step to where you want to go. This is a very, very important teaching, and not at all merely a technique. It works with your own being as you are. Joy to you.